Imagine what happens when a province richer than its parent country tries to break away, backed by mining companies, foreign powers, and a president in designer suits. In 1960, the mineral-rich province of Katanga declared independence from Congo. It had its own flag, its own army, its own currency, and a leader who claimed to be saving his people from chaos. But behind the scenes lurked mercenaries, multinationals, and the deadliest power games of the Cold War. This is the story of Katanga, a nation that glittered with copper, gold, and ultimately, betrayal. Welcome to the Library of Lost Lands, where we dwell into the stories of countries that once were and are no longer with us. Katanga enters our Library of Lost Lands as a cautionary tale of decolonization gone wrong, where Western companies, Cold War powers, and local elites all collided, and a fragile post-colonial state paid the price. It was a republic backed by money, guns, and ambition, but its independence came not from the people, but from the boardrooms of Europe. The state of Katanga occupied the southeastern corner of what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Its capital was Elizabethville, now known as Lubumbashi, a city built in the image of Europe with tree-lined boulevards and colonial villas, surreal in a sea of poverty. Katanga was the industrial heart of the Congo. Though it made up just 11% of the country's land, it contained over 60% of its mineral wealth, including copper, cobalt, uranium, and diamonds. These riches were so vast, so essential to global industries, that control of Katanga meant control of the Cold War raw materials economy. Katanga had its own flag, a red field with a white diagonal decorated with 3 Katanga crosses, ancient regional symbols of copper currency. It even issued passports, minted its own money, and hired foreign mercenaries to man its army. To understand Katanga's secession, we must go back to the darkest pages of Africa's colonial history. In 1885, King Leopold II of Belgium was granted control of the Congo Free State, not as a colony, but as his personal property. Under the guise of philanthropy, he ran it like a slave empire. Villages were burned, hostages taken, and millions died harvesting rubber and ivory. Children had their hands cut off for failing to meet quotas. International pressure eventually forced the Belgian state to assume control in 1908, transforming the Congo Free State into the Belgian Congo. But exploitation continued. The colonial regime established a racially segregated society in which white Belgians ran everything, from businesses to hospitals to the military, while Congolese were denied basic education and civil rights. Katanga was the crown jewel of the colony. Its copper mines, especially those operated by Union Minière du Haut-Katanga, or UMHK, became vital to global industry. During World War II, uranium from Katanga helped build the Hiroshima bomb. The wealth it generated made Belgium rich but left the Congolese poor. At independence in June 1960, the Congolese state was tragically unprepared. There were just 30 Congolese who had completed secondary school, and only 17 university graduates in the entire country. The army had no black officers. The civil service, judiciary, and economy were dominated by Europeans. Within just a few days, the army mutinied. Belgian settlers, fearing for their life, fled, and civil war loomed on the horizon. In the midst of all this chaos, Moise Tshombe, who was the head of Katanga's provincial assembly, declared the independence of Katanga on July 11, 1960, just about 2 weeks after Congo itself became a sovereign nation. Tshombe claimed he was saving Katanga from disorder, but behind the scenes his move was actually backed by Belgian elites and UMHK, both desperate to keep control over the mines. Belgian officers returned to advise Tshombe's army. Foreign mercenaries were recruited, and copper kept flowing into European ports, now under the flag of a breakaway state. Tshombe styled himself as a pragmatic, business-minded leader. He reassured the West that Katanga would remain open for trade, friendly to capitalism, and definitely hostile to communism. Fluent in French and impeccably dressed, he was a man of the European elite, not some kind of revolutionary. He promised stability, order, and prosperity. And, in fairness, Tshombe's Katanga was cleaner, safer, and better run than much of the rest of Congo, at least for the elite. Katanga had its own currency, parliament, and police force. It functioned as a Western-style client state dropped right into Central Africa. But no major country recognized it. Katanga was isolated diplomatically, even as it thrived economically. It was a state that existed in the shadows, propped up by capital and protected by guns. The Central Congolese government, led by charismatic nationalist Patrice Lumumba, refused to accept the breakaway. Lumumba viewed Katanga's secession as a neo-colonial coup, a ploy by Belgium to keep control of Congo's resources through Tshombe. Lumumba turned to the United Nations, which sent peacekeepers. But the UN initially refused to use force to suppress the secession. In desperation, Lumumba turned to the Soviet Union for military support, terrifying the United States and its allies during the height of the Cold War. Western powers, fearing a communist Congo, moved to neutralize Lumumba. The CIA, Belgian intelligence, and Congolese rivals conspired against him. He was arrested, flown to Katanga, and on 17 January 1961, executed by Katangan forces with Belgian oversight. His body was dissolved in acid. Lumumba's assassination shocked the world. He became a symbol of African martyrdom, and Katanga became a pariah. In 1961, the United Nations mandate changed. Its peacekeepers were now allowed to use force. Over the next 2 years, the United Nations waged war against Katangan forces, including European mercenaries, white South Africans, and ex-French foreign legionnaires. Elizabethville became a battlefield. Buildings were shelled, civilians fled. Tshombe begged for international mediation. But then came another tragedy. UN Secretary-General Dag Hammarskjöld, en route to negotiate a ceasefire, died in a mysterious plane crash in northern Rhodesia. Many suspect sabotage, but to this day, the truth remains unknown. Finally, in January 1963, after months of fighting, the UN overran Katanga. Tshombe fled to exile in Spain, and independent Katanga, or at least the illusion of it, was no more. Tshombe made a comeback in 1964 as Prime Minister of the entire Congo, hoping to stabilize the country. But his past haunted him. His government collapsed, and in 1967, he was kidnapped by a rogue pilot and detained in Algeria, where he died in 1969, possibly poisoned. Congo spiraled into dictatorship under Mobutu Sese Seko, who renamed the country Zaire and ruled with an iron fist. Katanga, renamed Shaba, would remain restive for decades. Armed rebellions in the 1970s and 1990s would once again invoke the memory of secession. The region's mineral wealth, copper, cobalt, uranium, is still coveted by foreign powers today. And the Congolese people? Many remain as poor as they were in 1960. The Katangan flag is gone, but the dream of autonomy is not. In Lubumbashi and surrounding areas, separatist movements still exist. In the 2020s, thousands of Katangese demonstrators still clash with authorities and fly the Katanga flag, calling again for independence. Foreign companies, now American, Chinese, and European, still mine Katanga's riches, and local people still see little benefit. And the ghost of Tshombe still hovers over Congolese politics, a symbol of both betrayal and order, depending on who you ask. Katanga teaches us that independence can be both liberating and deceptive. Its secession was framed as self-determination, but it served those who had always ruled foreign investors, colonial elites, and their allies. It raises a bitter question for every post-colonial nation: can you ever truly be free if you don't own your own resources?